Welcome, everybody. I hope everybody's doing good today. I see we already got people, Oklahoma, Vancouver. That's awesome. Hopefully, everybody's doing good today. We have quite a bit to talk about, actually. We have a couple days of information to go over. I was giving everything some time to come out, really get my ideas straight for what I wanted to talk about today, and just allow us to really dig into some of the more controversial topics that are going on. I wanted to not make myself sound like an idiot and do enough research to actually make it happen. So that's what we're going to be doing today. Please excuse me. I'm just looking for something really quick before we start. Oh, man. Okay. There it is. Okay. All right. Hopefully everybody's doing good. What's going on? Is it working on Twitter right now? Oh, there it is. Okay. I don't know why it was taking so long to pop up on my thing. Hold on, everybody. All right. I'm done with everything. Hopefully, everybody is doing good today. Vancouver, we got Chicago. That's what's up. So it's good that you guys are in here. Just before we get started, I guess I'll go ahead and do my little intro right now. Hopefully, everybody's doing good today. We have quite a bit to talk about. If you guys know me, please go and like and subscribe this video. It's just the easiest way you can help me out. If you want to ask questions throughout the video, the live stream, feel free to do so in the chat. If you want your questions answered, absolutely. You can donate through Super Chat, and I will be able to see it much more easily that way. And if you guys are looking for more of my content, go check me out on Telegram and Twitter, as well as my Patreon. I don't think I put the links in my description of my video this time. Oh, that's unfortunate. Oh, well. You can go find them in my other videos. It's the same link in every single video, so you can go find them in any of my other YouTube videos. But yeah, so before we get into, the Tu-95 missile strike, the hospital strike, all of the topics that we're going to get into today, I'm just going to go over the map and show you guys a few of the map updates. Let's see. We got Kazan, Russia. What's up, dude? That's awesome. Los Angeles, dope. Arizona, hot as hell. North Korea, sure. Philippines, Moscow, Berlin. Awesome, guys. That's awesome. All right. Head over to the old map. Make sure you guys can see this. Get rid of my, well, I guess I can be there. All right. So we have quite a bit to talk about today. I'm going to start with probably what I deem to be the most significant. The advance in New York by the Russians is also quite significant, but I believe that the most significant event that is currently happening, that is currently being talked about right now, is the fact that Russian DRGs, which stands for Deep Reconnaissance Group, these are usually special forces or units that are specifically trained to do deep recon. So going behind enemy lines, going into gray zone, disrupting logistics, just causing problems all over the map. Russian groups of this nature, DRGs, have apparently pushed in through some of these tree lines here and are making transport and logistics along the 0532 highway impossible for the Ukrainians. This is very important because it is the major and most stable in terms of pavement. The road's paved, stable road for supplying the Ukrainian garrison in Vuhledar and the #1 coal mine right here, just to the north. If you guys don't know, Vuhledar is just a apartment complex for the coal mine, basically. So it's a little coal mining town. And then everybody just goes from here to the coal mine and works. or used to at least. Now they're two defensive locations that have been incredibly stubborn and difficult for the Russians to penetrate and get behind and cause problems back behind here for the Ukrainians. So these DRGs have breached this logistics line right here. It is very significant, guys. This is one of my preconditions, basically, when I talked about Konstantinivka getting pushed, Konstantinivka getting pushed, and the 0532 was that once this road is cut, Ukrainian logistics is going to only be able to come through two back roads. One comes down from Vadyan into the coal mine, which is very close to being disrupted in and of itself, comes back here, comes down, and then this is where it is, right there. And then the other one comes down from this village right here, and it's like this, this, and this. Now, both of these lines are on, let's see, let's make it blue so you can see it, increase the line width. Both of these logistics lines are on unpaved and soft roads. So logistics on these roads is already difficult. It can be disrupted very easily by weather. So this is something that needs to be also paid attention to. I don't necessarily think it's going to take this long, but if this battle gets into the, I would say, late fall sort of months, that's when we start to see the mud, and these roads will become much, much, much more difficult to pass. You can see that these are just basically dirt roads on the side of tree lines. Not the best for logistics, not the best to keep garrisons supplied, but not impossible for the Ukrainians to manage. So very, very big. The fact that the Ukrainians are now saying that they can't supply Vuhledar along this road right here, the 0532. Okay. All right, moving slightly north, we have a unconfirmed Russian advance. We haven't got a geolocation, but Russian sources were saying that that Russian forces had pushed up along this tree line and came very, very close to entering Konstantinivka. Again, this is significant because Konstantinivka is on this 0532. Once the Russians get access to the 0532 and push beyond it, they will gain this line of logistics from Marinka and from Donetsk down into southern Donetsk. It is an important road that the Russians definitely want to capture to improve their logistics upon this line and for future advancements into the rear areas here south of Pokrovsk. Like I said, as soon as this highway is cut, I'm expecting an offensive in this area of some kind, some sort of breakthrough. The lines down here are thin, and the Russians should be looking to exploit that. All right. Okay. Moving up in here to Krasnohorivka, we can see that the Russians have captured the easternmost fortifications. So now all of the defensive fortifications pre-war have been captured in this sector. There is a slight bit of fortification right here, but nothing significant. The Russians have also captured the hospital and progressed along this northern block here of the city, which is basically the end of the Battle of Krasnohorivka for the Ukrainians. They've lost all of the high-rise buildings. They've lost the big hospital complex, which was one of their strong defensive points. They've lost basically all of this. I'm pretty sure this is gone as well. The high-rise buildings here, this pocket is going to close, and the only thing that the Ukrainians can do now is slowly withdraw out of the suburban housing that they will get pushed out of, probably make up a defense along this northern line and potentially right here in this area, and then just slowly fight their way out of Krasnohorivka. Krasnohorivka is quite long. If you look back here, you can see that it goes all the way back to this area. So the Battle of Krasnohorivka is this advancement is very, very positive for the Russians. They will now be able to wrap up at least this divided chunk of the city much quicker now. Okay. Moving up, we have a developing situation for the AFU in this area just outside of Avdiivka on the Pokrovsk front. The Russians are methodically capturing important positions and cutting off logistics lines. I'm going to draw a little line for you guys so you can see sort of what I'm talking about here. I made a post about this, but well, let's just call it right there. And this line that we're seeing here, oops, just put it in orange so you guys can see it. This line right here is where this Vovocha River runs through. The Vovocha River in this area is not particularly wide, so it is crossable. Probably on foot, I doubt a vehicle would be able to get through. But again, it's a physical barrier here, and down here you can see that the Vovocha River widens into what is almost basically a reservoir, large pond, I guess, small lake. But this is not good for Ukrainian defense. This is again a bridgehead. This entire section right here is a bridgehead, and Novoselika Persha was the kind of the staging area for Semenkivka, Berdichi, Umanske, Novopokrovsk, and now the Russians are on top of it, and the Ukrainians are going to have to withdraw from this area. With this Russian advance to the north, you can see that the Russians are now within direct fire, like line of sight fire of the remaining roads into Novoselivka. So Novoselivka, sorry. So the Ukrainians will be forced to withdraw from this area. I mean, people are, I see somebody that said on foot. Yes, on foot, but I doubt that there are many Ukrainian armor assets in this area anyway. Most of the Ukrainian armor assets in the Avdiivka salient are fighting up here. There were some that were fighting around Sochil, but guys, it's hard to maintain armor across, on a bridgehead like this. So this is mostly infantry. Any armor is going to be back on this side and fighting up here in the Foris and Vovoche area right here. So yeah, not a lot of armor on this side of the salient. Like I said, the two logistics lines are cut, and the Ukrainians have lost their large fortification. They call it the cat fortification, I believe. I don't know if it's because it kind of maybe looks like a cat. I don't know. But these are the defensive fortifications that the Russians are fighting through. On the other side of the river, though, if the Ukrainians withdraw, they have actually very strong positions to withdraw to. If you look here, you can see this large fortification just across the river that the Ukrainians will definitely utilize. It's probably already being shelled and bombed by Russian aviation and artillery, but still, strong fortification, hard to just break through and force your way through. And then down to the south, right here, we see another very large fortification. And then down here, an extension of that fortification continues. So some significant fortified areas for the Ukrainians just across the river. However, they are out in the open and not covered by foliage. So FPVs, artilleries, and glide bombs are just going to riddle this entire bank of the Vovocha River. All right. The Russians have advanced and captured the small village of Yevenhivka. You can see that it's mostly just a few houses. These settlements are very small, like Sochil, very tiny. The Russians again made a small improvement along the railway line towards Perovsk. Remember that this rail line from Orchitny all the way to Pokrovsk is on the high ground. So the Russians will follow this to the best of their abilities. Sort of like, it's just like a road for the Russians. It gives them constant elevation and pretty good cover because there's a lot of tree lines along the railroad sections. All right. Another small Russian advance out of Novo-Alexandrivka towards, how are we going to say this one? Lozovatsky. This is not as important. It's just a small map update. But the important aspect of it is that the area that the Ukrainians are enjoying between the ring road and the front line is now about 6 kilometers maybe. That's not including the gray zone, so probably something closer to 4 or 5 kilometers of space on this side of the road. That means that logistics on this road, especially considering that the high ground is over here and is within ATGM range and FPV range now, logistics and supply and travel along this highway between Konstantinivka and Pokrovsk is likely becoming extremely threatened. This is the Russian goal. As I put in my presentation, this is the Russian goal here. You can see the Russians are still working in this way. I think that what is going to happen, I'm going to give a little prediction here for my for what's going to happen in the New York and Toretsk. I'll talk about it in just a second. I'm just going to delete this. Okay. So over here in New York, the Russians have again advanced a pretty significant advance up to the Kryvyi Torets River. I wanted to say Krivoy because Krivoy Rog and Kryvyi Rih is like the same place, but one's Ukrainian and one's like the Russian spelling. And sometimes, guys, I will say things in Ukrainian spelling, and sometimes I will say them in Russian spelling. I try to use whatever's on the map, but sometimes the names of places in Ukrainian or Russian are kind of dumb, and they don't make a lot of sense just for like ease of communication. So like I don't say Artyomovsk because Bakhmut is so much easier, and everybody knows what I'm talking about when I say Bakhmut. So if you guys hear me go back and forth, or Vugledar or Ugledar or whatever, just if you know what I'm talking about, it doesn't matter. It's like saying the Big Apple in New York. Like, who cares? But people who say the Big Apple are dorks. So the Russians have advanced. This is a very significant advance up into this little industrial area here, over into these set of high-rise buildings, which is usually a pretty strong defensive area. So for it to fall as quickly as it did to the Russians is very significant. It shows the weakness of the AFU in this area. They do not want to be losing the center of New York. The Russians are getting very close to this large industrial area right here, which will be very good to springboard onto attacks into Nelpivka and Leonidrivka. This is the last remaining section of pre-war fortifications on the entire front line, except I said down here around Novelsky, there's like a little section that pops out, but nothing significant. This is it. This is the last of the well, I guess you would call it the scars of the Civil War. So this is now we are now in or almost getting into completely uncharted territory on the front line, where there is no more Ukrainian pre-war fortifications that they get to enjoy and hide behind. This will be I think a rather big moment, at least for me in the SMO, mapping it, watching everything shift and how long it's taken for the Russians. They're not going for territory necessarily, so the advancements are very slow. But this marks the end of the Donetsk line right here. So it's kind of a big deal. Of course, there's lines behind it, and there's lines being constructed and everything. But in terms of historical significance, this is about to come to an end. And we can really see that because there's only a few lines of logistics into this area, and one is rather safe in this area, but there's a lot of pressure coming from the front. There's going to be pressure coming from the rear of this line now as the Russians develop out of New York towards this line of defense. Expect at least this pocket to fall rather quickly. I don't know how long this pocket's going to fall. The Ukrainians do not want to lose this Tetikon right here. It's in the gray zone, but the Ukrainians do not want to lose it. If they lose that, it's going to set the Russians up to begin operations basically into Toretsk. This whole front can deteriorate very, very quickly. But what I think is going to happen, I think that the Russians have now put enough pressure and they're causing enough issues. There's a slight stabilization for a little bit. and now the Russians are advancing again. I think what the Russians are going to do is they're going to force a massive Ukrainian rotation into Toretsk if the Ukrainians are still able to rotate and respond with mobile reserves into Toretsk. Once the Ukrainians get into Toretsk, the push from this front of the from this sector of the front is going to stop, and what you're going to see is this from the flanks. Get the Ukrainian army inside, trap them inside, destroy them with glide bombs and artillery while still, keeping them fixed with attacks, assaults from the front, and then begin serious operations around the flanks, force even more Ukrainian rotation to defend the flanks, and then capitalize everywhere else on the map. I would not expect big arrows. I would not expect fast movement. All of that, like I've said this entire time, for the Russians, all of that will come when there's no more Ukrainian army standing in their way. Don't expect what's working to be fixed. If it ain't broke, don't fix it sort of situation. That's going to be, I think, the reality. You're going to see another long, grinding battle of the Ukrainians here. But as we've seen, these long grinding battles are getting shorter and more compressed, and the Ukrainians aren't able to make them last as long, and the battles are just getting drawn out. So, I think that this is, we're getting to a point in the conflict where Russia is now, to me personally, it starts to feel like, the entire time Russia has been fighting undermanned, so I guess you could say that the Ukrainians have been outmatched. But it's always seemed like the Ukrainians have been able to deal with what the Russians are doing. While they might be taking losses, they might be losing some territory here and there. Overall, they've done a pretty good job, I'd say, for 2.5 years. Not, counting losses and stuff, technically. But in the overall scope of things, the Russians have been moving slow. I know that territory is not the primary objective, but they're still moving slow. And the Ukrainians have done a very good job of defending, especially in areas like Seversk and stuff like that. But I think we're getting to the point where you will not see the Ukrainians being able to defend well almost ever again. And we'll see that when we get up into the Vovchansk area as well. I'll actually leave that. I like that line. All right. The next Russian advance is up in the Kharkov Oblast, so right next to the Luhansk Oblast, and the Russians have just pushed out into Pashane, just on the southern edge of this river. It is an important advance because it gets them much closer to this Ukrainian line of logistics. Remember, there are very few crossings across the Oskol River, especially down here where it gets much wider. So cutting this area and forcing this entire area to be supplied by a few bridges is actually going to be instrumental in clearing the left bank of the Oskol for the Russians. It's not the most significant advance in terms of what's being captured, but it is still an important advance to the overall tactical nature of the situation on the left bank of the Oskol, or the right bank of the Oskol, sorry. Left bank, right bank? I can't remember. It's whichever way it flows. But I'm retarded, so all right. In the Sinkivka area, we have two small Russian advances, mostly just along this tree line right here. But this entire area has come under Russian control. And then to the north, in this forested area, the Russians have advanced in an area that they had once controlled and then lost, then controlled again, and then lost again. The Ukrainians, this is the shortest point on the Ukrainian logistics line. So being able to stage in Kupiansk and go and hold Sinkivka has been incredibly, has had a lot of endurance for the Ukrainians. The Russians have not enjoyed the ease that the Ukrainians have in defending, in attacking. So, but still, more progress on the Kupiansk line. We're just seeing progress everywhere. Chunk here, chunk there, chunk here, chunk there. Eventually, one day, it's going to be much larger chunks, and then potentially, oblasts and cities and stuff like that. It's just, it's a battle of attrition, guys. Eventually, the opposing side will wear down, or you will wear down. That's the West. That's the only options you have. I'm just going to look at chat real fast. Hello, Scott. I enjoy your coverage of the conflict. Thank you, man. Welcome in, Starbreaker. Nice to see you in here, my man. I just hope everybody's doing good. Let's see. Kalibrated. Expected Duran contacting you someday. The commentator mentioned you during a live stream. Bringing that Alex Alexander said they would like to. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I've talked to them before in the past. They're great guys. They're very nice. Yeah, I would love to go on their show. They're fantastic. I enjoy aspects of their reporting that are kind of foreign and alien to me. One of my favorite things to do, and you guys should do this. I have a specific interest, I guess, and most of you do too, in this Ukraine conflict. But just sitting here all day mapping and watching it, I'm very good at like sort of like the battlefield minutia. I know what's happening on the ground. I know what's, for the most part, I know what lines are moving, where the Russians are advancing, where the Ukrainians are advancing, defending, whatever. But when it comes to the broader geopolitical aspects, I'm just not as experienced, and I learn a ton. And everybody gets some things wrong. I'm not going to say that the Duran is as excellent in their, not they are excellent, but would you say it? They're not always correct, right? Everybody's going to be wrong at some point. But they do an awesome job of explaining very, very complex and niche subjects to, I guess, what I would consider myself as a layman when it comes to, especially like British politics and European politics. I'm just not as well versed. I haven't lived in it my entire life. So it's something cool that you guys should do if you're watching any content creator in this information space, is find what they do best and then listen to that information from them, because you're going to find people all over the place that do a couple things really, really well, and then they're going to have weaknesses in other areas. My weakness is probably squat. Rip. Long ribs for Scotty. Hit it up, dude. That's what's up. All right. Let's get into Vovchansk here, boys. So I'm marking it in purple for right now, although most Russian sources are marking it as captured. And I'm actually going to expand it a little bit here for you guys so you can see what's going on. So the Russians have, if you remember a week or two ago, the Ukrainians pushed in and recaptured this little beach area right here, bridgehead. I don't know what you want to call it, across the Vovocha. I think that the crossing area right here is fairly easy on foot. So they were able to push the Russians back a little bit. Eventually, the Russians pushed the Ukrainians out, recaptured the point, and then over the next 1 to 2 days have pushed in and gained a foothold in this area of the southern end of Vovocha. So very, very complex situation for the Ukrainians developing here. As you can see, the Ukrainians are still holding positions in the northern area of Vovocha. Eventually, they will have to withdraw if this continues to progress. I left it in purple just because it's such a weird little area that I could see the Russians getting pushed out of this area if the Ukrainians mount a major counterattack because of just how narrow the bridgehead is right now. If it expands one more time, I think the Russians will have it pretty secured. But for right now, I'm going to leave it in purple. We actually do have another little advance. I'll just mark it over here. Somewhere in this area, the Russians have crossed and made a little bridgehead. So I'm just going to mark this area up against the water as purple, unconfirmed, and the area is not exact, but two potential crossings out of the northern side of Vovchansk into the southern area. Not good for the Ukrainian army, who said that they were going to push the Russians out of the area. I see this a lot. Let's see. This is fake, no geolocation. Okay, so guys, there is a plethora of information that you can find about this conflict that is not going to be visually confirmed. You cannot solely work off of visual confirmation, or you will be months behind, and you will be lost as to what's happening next. Because if you look at maps, specifically maps that run really, really strict on geolocation, which is perfectly fine. That is a very accurate map in terms of there is nothing marked incorrectly technically, but these maps tend to get very far behind because the information is there, it exists. If every single pro-Russian source, especially the ones that you've found to be consistently accurate and correct, I'm not talking about there's like Z telegrams. I don't really follow any of them. Same with the Ukrainian telegrams that are just constantly putting out lies and fakes and stuff like that. Don't follow those. Find the really nitty gritty pro-Russian or pro-Ukrainian telegrams, usually related to units with guys on the ground, connection sources on the ground, and you will see information and reports come out like this, and then 4 days later it's confirmed through geolocation. I would not put this on my map unless 3 of my overly reliable sources confirm the same information, right? I have 2 that confirm it right away, usually correct information, and then I have a 3rd that's slower but also just equally as accurate. If all 3 of those sources line up and say the exact same thing, I add it to my map, and I haven't added it in green because it's unconfirmed. So you cannot solely work off of geolocation and spotting. I just watched a video today. It's going to be in my demonetized episode that I'm going to film later today with a Russian glide bomb strike, and it's the aftermath and the results of the Russian glide bomb strike on a Ukrainian warehouse. And the warehouse was being used as a auto shop. It might have been an auto shop previously to repair military, like civilian vehicles that the military is using, just doing like engine work and stuff. They had like lifts and things like that. But you watch and you walk around, and this building is just destroyed. The cars are burned out. Everything's gone. If I said the Ukrainians lost an automobile, an automobile repair warehouse to a glide bomb strike, but I don't provide evidence, does it mean that it didn't happen? Like I didn't provide that video of the aftermath. Does it mean that it didn't happen? No, it just means that you can't confirm that information absolutely. But if you have multiple reports saying that something happened like that, and then you end up getting the video, it did happen. It's sort of a Schrodinger's cat situation, but you have to really work to analyze your sourcing and figure out what is actually happening on the ground and what's lies. And sometimes I'm wrong, right? Sometimes the Russian sources are wrong. Sometimes the pro-Ukrainian sources are wrong. Here, I'll go over to Deep State and I'll show you where Deep State is completely wrong because they have yet to update their map. So I'll take you over to that real quick. So we go over to Deep State and you zoom in on Vovocha or Vovochansk. And what's this? The Russians are still cut off in the aggregate plant. Why does not one single other source mention this? There was never a single shred of evidence, but yet this is still on the map, right? You want to talk about somebody, you want to talk about a mapper not updating quickly enough. This is crazy to me. It is crazy that this is still on his map. There was never a single ounce of evidence for this, and he's claiming that the Russians are still cut off. Meanwhile, the Russians are claiming they're down here. It's craziness. This is just crazy. Doesn't make any sense. But he got a report. He believed it. They added it to their map. That's the story they're running. So you want geolocations. That's like saying you want a picture, but what is a geolocation or a picture information? Yeah, no, you want a geolocation for sure. Geolocation is how you get it perfect, and that's when I mark it green. But if it's in purple, it's unconfirmed Russian advance, so it's not geolocated. I think Deep State is government controlled. I think that you are exactly right. Don't waste your time with these kind of arseholes. They're not arseholes, man. They're just people that are asking questions. And if you communicate with people and you talk to them and you find middle ground, usually you can change people's minds unless they're completely ideologically entrenched where they're at. If you can communicate with people, I talk with NAFO sometimes on like Twitter Spaces, and they end up being really cool people because there's like groupthink. Once you get those people away from groupthink, they're just people, and then you can communicate with them. So that's what I try to do with everybody in here. If anybody comes in here and is trying to be shitty, I talk to them. There's people that come in. I'm not saying that guy was being shitty because he wasn't, but the kind of talk that you're talking about. When people come in, you just gotta talk to them. That's the easiest way to pull back all of that nonsense, all of the propaganda that they hear, and all of the insulation and echo chambering gets peeled back, and then it's just they're exposed. That's how you do it. Okay, that was it for the map. I do believe that was all the updates we had today. Quite a few updates. That took us 35 minutes. So yeah, let me go over here, and I'm going to just talk about some of the events that happened. So I'm going to go ahead and talk about the strike that occurred on the hospital. I do believe it was a Russian strike. I'm going to go in and talk about why I believe it was a Russian strike. I'm going to talk about what I think the Russians were trying to hit, and I'm going to give a full explanation. So you're more than welcome to disagree with me. Call me an idiot in the chat. I don't care. Do whatever you guys want. Here we go. Okay, so pause that. I don't want any of the videos to play. I'm just going to show you guys some of the scenes from the strike. I'll probably actually get this video demonetized because of this, huh? Do I do it? Yeah, whatever. Okay, so primarily what I want to talk about today is the some of the narratives around the strike, and some of the I want to talk about some of the narratives around the strike, and I want to talk about what, in my opinion, actually happened. Okay, so first and foremost, there was a lot of videos coming out of Kiev just getting absolutely hammered. Air defense, the Patriots around the city completely failed to intercept the Kh-101 cruise missiles. We saw a series of Kh-1 cruise missiles that was very, very quickly misrepresented as the Russians striking the children's hospital, which would have been pretty wild if the amount of strikes that came down on the RDM plant came down on the children's hospital over here. So you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. By the way, the Ukrainians claimed that only 2 Kh-101s made it through and struck their targets. 7 alone struck this area, and 1 struck over here. So remember this picture, because this picture is going to be of vital importance. You can see where the majority of the strikes were with amazing accuracy, right? Every strike was on the plant. This plant just got leveled. And this strike was rather close, but distant, right? Not exactly on top of it, but not also what I would consider like a miss. If it hit somewhere over here or over here, you could say that there was some guidance issues or something. But this strike is far enough away that it's you're not going to claim that they were aiming for this and then there was somehow a miss or something like that. If you watch the video of the strike, which I will not be playing right now, it's this one where the missile comes in. You can see pretty clearly that it's a Kh-101. I saw a lot of people saying that it was a NASAMS missile. I don't think so. Guys, I am the first one to call a spade a spade. I said that in this post. I am the first one to say Ukrainian air defense. I'm the first one to make that claim. If I see the top 2 stories of a building collapsed and there's a little bit of fire damage or something to an apartment building, that's not what an Iskander does. That's not what a Kh-101 does. And I'm going to go into why this strike, I do believe it is a Kh-101. And I've seen a lot of people saying, oh, that's not 450 kilograms of explosive warhead, this, that, and the other. I believe that it is. I'm going to give you a damage assessment of the area. So first off, I want to talk about how the missile came in. From the video we saw, it was filmed from down over here. The missile, yellow right here, came in. It came close in over the hospital building, missed the hospital building, landed next to this building in orange, but in the, I would say, courtyard area in between this building, which I believe is the intended target, and the toxology building here that's circled in teal. We saw minor damage to windows. So the windows were blown out on this entire purple part. The windows were blown out on the children's hospital right here. And then the windows were damaged on this building over here as well. Significant damage to the roof, but only the corner collapsed here, and the rest of the building was pretty structurally sound. This building was entirely destroyed. However, it is a heavy reinforced concrete building. So the entire inside of the building is completely wiped, but the outside is still standing. And I'm going to show you guys a picture of that. So we come down here. Here you can see the, wait, what did I do something here? No, oh, okay, never mind. So here you can see the building that I believe was the target. It is an auxiliary building away from the children's hospital. Remember, the missile came right over the children's hospital, potentially from over this direction, maybe not directly over, but from the angle we see, we cannot determine if it comes over the hospital or to the left of the hospital. Comes down, strikes right in this area, somewhere around these trees, and potentially over here more closer to these bushes, and completely annihilates this building. You can see that in this picture right here, that the building is completely destroyed. Yeah, so I believe that this was the intended target. As you can see here, there are electrical signs on the outside of the building. Hospitals, if you guys don't know, have very, very large substations connected to them. When power goes out for any reason, the hospital has to continue operating. They have to run ventilators. They have to have lighting. They have to be in surgery. So they have large power rerouting facilities. This facility actually has two. I believe that this is the bigger of the two. And when we go back and we look at that map, when we look at the map of the strike, this substation is very large and very, very, very close to the RTM plant. Now, I have no evidence of this, so this is just my claim. I believe that the Ukrainians were rerouting power through this substation. I believe that they thought that this substation would be protected because of the location that it was in. And I think that the Russian rules of engagement have changed when it comes to collateral damage risk and just PR in general. If you look at the strike, and I'm going to also get into this, the actual casualties that were sustained from this strike, incredibly low. For a terrorist attack, it was one of the most minor terror style attacks. The Russians could have just hit the building with the Kh-101, but instead they hit the middle of the open, which resulted in only 2 adult deaths. There were some children that were injured, light injuries in the hospital. I think there was a surgery or 2 going on in the hospital at the time, so that was brought up. But in general, the hospital sustained almost no damage, right? The actual complex, the children's hospital section, had its windows blown out, and it had some light shrapnel to the exterior of the building because an explosion went off next to it. But in terms of its structure, it's perfectly fine. They're just going to repair the windows, and then the hospital is going to go back to doing what it does. We saw videos from inside of the hospital. The damage was almost negligible, broken glass in the rooms, but nothing serious, some blinds knocked over, stuff like that. No fire damage to the building, nothing like that. So in terms of a terrorist attack, the Russians just missed, I guess. It's an accuracy issue. They're the best terrorists, but they're also stormtroopers at the same time, so they can't hit shit. I don't know. None of it makes sense. It's obviously being propagandized. It's war crime porn, right? This is what I would expect either side to do. But it's very, very, very double-edged, I guess I would say, or hypocritical, or coming off of the back of the Sevastopol strike, right? And not the fact that it happened. Happening is one thing, but the reaction from the commentators and the information space is another thing. Like you laugh at kids on the beach getting hit with cluster munitions, but then when a target is struck, you're going to cry that the Russians are attacking children's hospitals when they obviously aren't. They could have put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 missiles on that children's hospital. That's what terrorists would do. Right? That's what terrorists would do. So this whole narrative does not work for me. It's for stupid people. It's for stupid emotional people. The Russian MOD also just came out and lied. So you got to be careful with the MOD. I don't expect them not to lie, because I would also just say it's Ukrainian air defense. Just like the Ukrainians said it was Russia's fault that the ATACMS opened up over the beach, which I don't think it did. I think that ATACMS opened up perfectly fine by itself. The spread looked consistent with ATACMS cluster munition spread. So I don't think it was intercepted in any way. I think the Sevastopol strike was, I don't know if the beach was the intended target, but I do think that they messed up somewhere in there. And yeah, the hypocrisy, man. If you're going to laugh at people dying on a beach, don't expect sympathy from the Russians when stuff like this happens, right? And again, no kids died. If you want to talk about sort of this weird double standard or dichotomy going on, the Russians also struck Kryvyi Rog with Kh-101 missiles, I believe, which are huge, and completely destroyed I think it was the Ministry of Infrastructure building, and killed 10 of its workers. But not a word about that. Not a word about that terrorism. In fact, those fatalities were combined and used to make this attack on the hospital look more significant and severe than it was. So you have to learn what is propaganda, and you have to learn to put propaganda aside from both sides, Russians and Ukrainians. It exists both sides. And you have to figure out what's actually happening, why it's happening, and then go forward from there. Did the Russians attack the children's hospital? No. What did the Russians attack? They attacked the electrical substation on the grounds of the children's hospital that is likely supplying energy to the RTM plant, which was the primary target of the strike. The Russians have also hit a number of other substations in Kiev during the strike, 3, according to DTEC, as well as a number of substations around the country in a new, what I would say, infrastructure campaign compared to the generation strikes that we've been seeing over the last couple of months. So now there's not so much need to target generation facilities because they're not operational to any significant degree. Every time one becomes slightly more operational, the Russians strike it. Now the Russians are going after large substations. They hit one in Rivne. You can find that post on my Twitter where you can see the firm's data. It's all tracked and confirmed. The Russians are going after these substations. So I believe that this was another substation strike. And I think that the Russians did a collateral damage estimation on it, and it came out favorable. The only collateral damage that really occurred that was what I perceive as unintended was the strike that landed in between the buildings, actually collapsed the corner of this toxicology building, resulting in at least one woman's death. I think both of the deaths might have come from the corner office of this building. So this is the collateral damage. And this is the part of the hospital that actually did sustain damage. You can see it here, but this is not a direct hit from a Kh-101 cruise missile. I think everybody can see that. The windows are blown in this way, not blown out. This corner of the building would be blown out if the missile hit right here. The missile hit somewhere down over here and just ended up collapsing the corner of the building. And that's where the fatalities likely came from. There is a video of a young woman who I believe is the doctor who ended up dying, or nurse, one of the two. she was pulled out of this building and the rebels. So, and then let me see, was there anything else I wanted to talk about in regards to this? Just some of the other claims of the air defense. This picture that was used is actually old. These munitions were not found at the scene. You can see that a lot of people claimed that this was shrapnel from the air defense missile. Guys, an air defense missile is not going to do this amount of damage. Look at the windows blown out back over here. The windows are blown out hundreds of meters away. All of the windows on the children's hospital are blown out. This strike was right here intended for this facility. And you can see that the heavy metal doors were blown off and blown in. The whole building is damaged. Back over here is damaged. This whole facility is gone. Very, very unfortunate that this toxicology building was in the blast radius. And just to talk about what I was talking about earlier, this is exactly what I mean right here. What dumb father brings his son to an active war zone, to the beach near a military base and airfield? Okay, first off, kilometers away from the airfield. So, but you know, this is the attitude. And then a hospital gets hit, and everybody cries about it, and nobody. It's crocodile tears, man. Nobody cares. And everybody's rolling their eyes too, because it happened on the eve of the NATO summit. So it's like, I mean, come on. You can't expect everybody just to be completely gullible. Yo, Scott, after the fall of Ugledar, Krasnohorivka, Chasiv Yar, any areas with lesser fortified positions, major cities, citadels, open fields, can finally have a chance to break through the Dnieper by 2026. Yeah, so we can go over and talk about that. I have said that 2026 is probably when this conflict is going to wrap up in totality, just because I don't think Ukraine is going to have the manpower to fight that long. Who knows? I could be wrong, but I think 2026 is a safe guess. I think that you're going to see Chasiv Yar fall here soon, like you talked about. I think you're going to see the New York Toretsk salient fall. I think that the line is going to look something like this, basically. Right? I think the line is going to look something like this. And you're going to see this is the point right here. I know it doesn't look like much, but this is the point where Ukraine is going to have to make a decision. Are they going to invest everything that they have remaining to defend Slavyansk, Kramatorsk, or are they going to retreat back, potentially, honestly, behind the river? I mean, they could potentially try to set up a defense line around Kharkov, but as we've seen, there are no defenses established in this area. It's very sparse. The roads are very distant from each other. Logistics is impossible. Defense in this area is going to be very, very difficult once these defense lines fall, and the Ukrainians aren't going to have places to hide. I honestly think that we probably won't see much of a battle for Slavyansk and Kramatorsk. I could be wrong in this assumption. I don't know what the end game, what Ukraine is thinking, like, we're going to defend it no matter what to the end. That could very well be the thought process. This is a defensible area in that it's a big urban center, so the Ukrainians may choose to fight here just because there's no fight back behind. If the Ukrainians do choose to fight for Slavyansk and Kramatorsk, I think we're going to see much easier battles for places like Kharkov, Pavlograd, Zaporozhye, Kherson. These areas are going to come much, much, much more easy to the Russians. If the Ukrainians do not fight for these and retreat and conserve equipment and manpower and try to fight from back here, I think that Western support is going to completely collapse and the war will be over either way. So I think we're getting to the point where there's just not much more that can be done for either side. And it's just going to get tighter and tighter for the Ukrainians. And if they, I don't know. the issue is if the Russians grab Chasiv Yar and then they gain control of this high ground, maybe level out the Seversk salient. Hell, if they make it over to Izum or any of this area over here, you're going to be basically seeing another salient around these two or these urban conglomerates with the Russians on the high ground. So it's just going to be very, very hard to defend this. This is sort of the last defense line, I think, for the Ukrainians here. I don't think that this is going to offer much in terms of defense. And I think the Ukrainians are getting very close to being at the point where they're going to have to come to the negotiating table. More of a surrender table, but yeah. Could you map the lines of defense before the SMO, please? I'm not going to waste my time doing that because we're almost done with the entire lines. If you would like to see it, though, head over to Suryak Maps. He has it, and it is very well done over there. I can actually show you guys that here. Other bookmarks. There it is. Yeah, here we go. You can see on this one, he has the defense lines all set up. There is one little area outside of Novelske that has not been captured yet by the Russians. And the last area is right here. But yeah, he has the full defense line if you want to go take a look at it. His map is very good. Romy and Gladius says easier to understand visually. I don't have one of those. I wish I could. All right, I'm gonna just go over a couple of articles real fast, and then if you guys have some more questions, go ahead and start throwing up questions, guys. I'll be looking over at the chat a little bit more now. So here's the first little cope, kind of interesting. U.S. officials say it is unlikely for Russia to take much more Ukrainian territory. Russian forces continue to inflict pain, but NATO leaders gathering in Washington can say that their efforts to strengthen Ukraine are working. Well, at least they can gather in Washington to say that, right? It doesn't mean that it's the reality, but hey, at least they can have a little powwow and talk about it. Russia is unlikely to make significant territorial gains in Ukraine in the coming months and is poorly trained. Oh, wait, I already read this. Oops. My bad, guys. All right. Psych. We're going to go to a different one. I had it on my list. I didn't think that I had done it yet. Zelensky says Putin awaits November and calls for the immediate aid in Washington for NATO summit. So Zelensky is panicking. It does look like Biden is going to struggle to get reelected. I don't know. I never say never. Who knows? But it does look like he is not even going to make it to the election. That was my prediction the entire time. His mental health is deteriorating quicker and quicker every day. So realistically, I don't think he's going to be able to make it. But this just shows the desperation. They want to get as much equipment and commitments from the West as they can before Trump comes into office. Because what they're thinking is basically Trump is going to instantly constrict, bottleneck everything, and force the Ukrainians to come to the negotiating table, which means the end of Zelensky. Zelensky can't allow that to happen. So it's sort of a political battle right now. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky said on Tuesday, urged international leaders to promptly aid his war-torn country. Had to highlight that, and not wait for November or any other month. I'm pretty sure November is the month you're talking about. Zelensky said everyone is waiting for November, including the Russian President Vladimir Putin, as the 2024 U.S. presidential election and the specter of the second term of Donald Trump. The specter. Oh, my God. Presidency remains top of mind for international leaders gathering in Washington, D.C. for a high-stakes NATO summit. The only reason the stakes are high is because you're doubling down and fucking losing. So stupid. Okay. It's time to step out of the shadows, to make strong decisions work, and to act, not to wait for November or any other month. To this end, we must be strong and uncompromising altogether, Zelensky said. And first of all, America, and first of all, the leaders of America, and the President of the United States is the leader of the free world, to be uncompromising in defending democracy, uncompromising against Putin and his country, uncompromising to every possible terror. We just talked about how the Russians are the worst terrorists on the planet. You can give them a tactical nuke and they'll throw it in the Black Sea. And the Ukrainians will claim that they tried to hit a puppy rescue in Lvov. So, yeah, it's just more pandering, more complaining. And then after the NATO summit, once the realization comes down that, again, another NATO summit has failed to yield the results that Zelensky's hoping for, I bet he's going to go on and make some pretty combative statements about the support that he's getting from the West. He does this every time. So just expect that here soon. All right. Oh, here we go. F-16 head to Ukraine to begin flights this summer. They've been saying this for a while. Again, the wording that they're using is very suspicious to me. So we're going to read this. Denmark and Netherlands have begun sending jets, but Ukraine's president says he needs more. Of course he does. NATO's countries have begun transferring American-made F-16s to Ukraine with hopes that the fighter jets will quickly be in the skies to help Ukraine defend, or help Kiev defend itself against the Russian air onslaughts. They already have this, and it's not preventing the air onslaughts. The aircraft cannot get close enough to provide air-to-air defense against these bombers. And unless you give the Ukrainians permission to strike Russian territory with Western weapon systems, which, yikes, then these F-16s are just going to do the exact same thing that the MiGs and the Su-24s are doing right now. They're going to be just glorified Storm Shadow carriers. Excuse me. All right. Back over here. The U.S. and Denmark, Denmark and the Netherlands announced, the U.S., Denmark, and Netherlands announced during the NATO summit in Washington on Wednesday that the two latter countries had sent over aircraft, though they did not say how many. The U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken also mentioned the news during a public forum. Those jets will be flying in the skies of Ukraine this summer to make sure that Ukraine continue to effectively defend itself against Russian aggression, Blinken said to applause. Holy glazing, dude. Jesus Christ. Our media is so just glazing. So F-16s potentially in country. If you see the Tu-95s go up and an airbase gets hit, there's a chance that is now an F-16, guys. Be on the lookout for any visuals of these. It's going to be kind of interesting to see if these actually have any impact. I'm going to go ahead and lay out a prediction. No. I've been solid in that prediction almost the entire war. I think the only weapon that's actually been somewhat of a game changer for the Ukrainians was HIMARS, and that kind of ran out of steam in 2023. So, F-16s are just going to be another decoration for the airfields to get struck. They're going to be expensive and painful to lose too, man. Not worth it. All right, one final article here, guys. Biden pledges air defenses for Ukraine as NATO summit begins. Angry old man. U.S. President Joe Biden has pledged to provide Ukraine with 5 new strategic air defense systems to counter the relentless Russian attacks in a forceful speech welcoming NATO leaders to Washington, D.C. In a brief but strongly delivered remark, at the opening of the summit, the president declared the military alliance more powerful than ever, never weaker than ever. as it faced a pivotal moment in the war between Russia and Ukraine. How is it a pivotal moment for NATO if the war is between Russia and Ukraine, a non-NATO member? Interesting. Interesting. Mr. Biden said that the U.S. partnership with Germany, Italy, and the Netherlands and Romania to donate Patriot missile batteries and other systems to aid Ukraine amid growing civilian casualties in the conflict. Bullshit. Absolute bullshit. There are not rising civilian casualties. This is just, again, another way that the propaganda just slips in little narrative adjustments, right? Oh, the Russians are killing so many Ukrainian civilians, so we have to give them air defenses. No, that's not what's happening. Give the Palestinians air defenses because they're the ones that are getting massacred by NATO aircraft. You know, it's just such a crock of shit, man. And then people just spoon eat this. They just all day, and then they repeat it to me, and I go, "Did you even think about what you were saying before you said it?" The announcement comes just 2 days after the Russian missile leveled a children's hospital. Leveled it. I showed you the corner of a small auxiliary building that was slightly damaged. And they said they leveled the children's hospital. That's crazy, dude. That's crazy. That's so crazy. That's people just don't know. They're too busy. My mom reads this and she goes, "Oh wow, the Russians leveled the children's hospital. It's horrible." It pisses me off so much. It pisses me off so much. And I get called a liar and a grifter and everything, Russian propagandist, everything all day. And then people sit here and read this crap. It's unbelievable, dude. All right. I'm done for the day, guys. That's wild. We had 6,500 people watch this live stream. That is awesome, guys. I appreciate you all so much. All of you that are still in here, thank you for making it to the end. You guys are the bees freaking knees. Please go like and subscribe to this page, this YouTube page, my YouTube page, Kalibrated. Like the video. That helps me get seen by more people, and then we get more people in the chat, and we get more bros asking questions and making the content better. I really appreciate all of you. Have an amazing day. Be on the lookout for that demonetized episode coming out later today. Number 7 will be free for all free Patreon members. Remember, you can just go make an account for free on Patreon and join. It doesn't cost you anything, and you're still supporting me. You can go watch those videos for free. If you do decide to support me financially through Patreon, you will get early access to those demonetized videos. They are not required to understand what's going on in Ukraine. They are just extra content that I put out for you guys, and it's just a way for you to support me. So I really appreciate you all. Have an amazing day, and I will see you on the next one. Goodbye.